Welcome to the Deficient Vegans podcast. This is episode 51. I'm the muscle deficient vegan here with the protein deficient vegan. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Hi, everybody. This week, we're going to jump into the discussion about vegan diets just being a bunch of processed junk food. And we're also going to talk about our myth of the week, which is that eating carbs at night will make you fat. But first up, new news.
New news.
An analysis of European data shows that plant proteins have not increased in price as much as animal-based proteins. This has resulted in plant-based meat alternatives being cheaper per kilogram than conventional processed meat in Germany and the UK, at least.
Oh my gosh, I need this news to hit America.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Apparently, this is a reversal from pre-pandemic levels when they were more expensive.
Is this the only good thing to come out of the pandemic?
Yes, I think so. I guess this doesn't necessarily only count the plant-based meat replacements you might think of,
Yeah,
like
like
Beyond and
Beyond.
stuff, but it's counting anything you might eat that is plant protein instead of eating plant-based meat.
Yeah,
or,
like
instead of
tofu or something.
Instead of eating animal-based meats.
Yeah. So like tofu, TVP, tempeh,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Next up, Austria Juice has a new fruit juice product with 30% less sugar.
Tell me how.
Yeah, so this is made with yeast fermentation, and it allows for 100% fruit juice that still has 30% less sugar, so it can comply with some of the new EU breakfast regulations coming out about sugar.
This is so cool. I love anything to do with yeast.
Yeah.
So I think we can also assume they probably make food-grade ethanol as a byproduct.
Yeah, so the yeast eat the sugar, and then
they poop out ethanol and also carbon dioxide.
Right. So you can use the alcohol afterwards. You can use the yeast afterwards after they dry them back out or something?
Well, typically you wouldn't reuse the yeast because they there's usually like a distillation process, so they would get spent because of the heat. Yeast are very particular. You have to keep them in a very specific pH and temperature levels and whatnot. But usually like anything with like dried yeast, especially like in ethanol production, will get used for animal feed.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Don't know if they're doing any of that, but surely they're doing something with it, right?
We looked it up and we couldn't find it, but like I can't imagine they're just tossing all of that out because you could make some pretty decent money on like food grade ethanol.
Yeah.
So
cool. And then last up, the food company Cargill, which is a huge company, has partnered with Voyage Foods to create a cocoa-free chocolate product. This one will be coming first to the U.S. for once. Usually we get things last. But the product is called Nextco, and I guess they're trying to address both the ethical concerns around cocoa as well as the kind of cocoa shortage that's going on right now.
Yeah, and just that it's like very highly priced right now, which is driving up prices of a lot of chocolates.
Yeah. I saw they have a quote-unquote milk-style chocolate as well as a dark chocolate product they're going to be putting out. And I think I saw that it was mostly going to be for like baking chocolate and confectioner's chocolate and stuff. I don't know if there was a chocolate bar, but it said chocolate wafers.
Yeah, I imagine they'll probably also sell it to chocolate, like confectioners that actually use chocolate to make chocolate bars and stuff that are sold as candy.
That's a good point, yeah. It'll probably end up in some stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Very cool that it seemed like they were mostly plant-based options.
Yeah. So that's exciting. We are usually last on board, especially for chocolate products. I think there's a lot of vegan chocolate products out there that have been out there for years we still don't have.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So let's get into the main segment here. So when was the last time somebody hit you with, isn't vegan food all processed?
The last time someone hit me with that? Probably an hour ago.
It's very common on social media. We'll say something about vegan food or whatever the nonsense is we're talking about.
Yeah.
And part of something in the comments is like, that's all processed junk.
Yeah.
What specifically are you talking about? And I never really know, but...
Of course they don't know. They don't actually look into it.
Yeah. So the question kind of gets phrased in various ways. Some of those are like, what are all those ingredients in a Beyond Burger?
Yeah. Or like, I thought we were only supposed to eat things we could pronounce. And I'm like, I don't know, sir. I don't think you can pronounce much.
Oh, yeah. And if you really break it down, you probably can't pronounce most of the things in an apple, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And kind of follow on to that, like, isn't the food all full of chemicals?
Right.
What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, because if you looked into most of the quote-unquote chemicals, which, by the way, chemicals make up literally everything. That's just how things work. But if you looked up these, like, quote-unquote chemicals, you'd find out that most of them they're not, like, specific to vegan foods, and they also have, like, either it's shelf stability or maybe, like, a texture thing.
Well, a couple of those things people think of as chemicals, in that terminology, is some stuff you actually have here in the kitchen that you use sometimes.
Yeah, and I the one I get the most often in the last week is like TVP is ultra processed.
Oh, man.
And I get it from like omnivores and vegans alike. And I think a lot of that is just not a very good understanding of how food is made in general.
Yeah. Well, I've seen some. It's kind of like the oils. Like they can have a process that uses some hexane to extract things.
Right.
There's not much left afterwards usually, but also they have processes where they can like cold press or use the expellers and stuff that they don't really use the chemicals. They just squish the beans.
Yeah.
So
I think the interesting thing about TVP is like, yes, it's processed, but it's not any more processed than protein powders. And most of the people commenting that are probably also using protein powders every so often. So, just a lot of general misunderstanding of how things work.
Yeah. There might be a little bit of truth to some of those things, just enough to keep it from, fading away as an argument. So we'll cover some of that stuff. But first, we wanted to talk a little bit about how the vegan diet itself has evolved over time and kind of how we got here.
Yeah, which I think is really interesting. It kind of like vegans kind of hit specifically like the U.S. This is the context we'll give you because we are U.S. based. But it seems like the first time vegan became like a word that was used was around the 1970s. And I think it was kind of like, hippy dippy tree hugger types that just like eat beans all day,
Right. Yeah, it was like mostly cooking from scratch at home, whole foods, because there weren't convenience options.
Right.
So they focused on things like lentils, brown rice, nuts. Homegrown vegetables was pretty big back then. Still kind of big for people who can manage to do it. You have a green thumb and all.
Yeah. What's interesting is TVP actually existed back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I have a video that's kind of going right now on my like black bean and TVP enchiladas. And I'm having a lot of comments like, I grew up in the 70s and we weren't a vegan family, but my mom used to like make the ground beef last longer by mixing in TVP.
Yeah.
And like I've also had people saying that they grew up in like the 70s, 80s, and then TVP was used in like their school lunches and stuff.
Didn't somebody mention a restaurant that used TVP with their beef?
Yeah. I don't know how much truth there is to it, but there's a lot of conspiracies or maybe not conspiracies that Taco Bell used to add in TVP to their like ground beef. I think there's some truth to it because it seems to be pretty widespread.
I don't know what the conspiracy. I mean, I guess you think you're getting beef and you're not, but it's not like they were adding in some poison or something.
But like the other thing is, back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, before like allergens were well understood and websites were readily available, you usually didn't know what was in the food you were eating unless you specifically asked, and then they'd go back with that like binder of food and go look and see what ingredients are in there.
Yeah. The nutrition binder.
Yeah.
Another one they used to make a lot in the 70s were like the nut-based mock meats. We've actually got a place around here that does a walnut mushroom type meat.
It's really good.
Yeah. So, that's kind of what they were working with at that time.
Yeah, and also tofu dishes.
Right. And, frankly, this is still how vegans eat the majority of the time is like cooking from scratch with these whole ingredients, no matter what the ingredients are. And what's kind of changed over time is the public perception due to having more of those increased convenience options and options at the grocery store and restaurants and stuff.
Yeah, I know how the majority of the time how we cook, it's usually probably pretty similar to how they were cooking in the 70s, except maybe, instead of having to make my own vegan cheese all the time, I'm able to buy a bag of like shredded vegan cheese to use on certain things, but we really don't even use that very often.
Even for that, there are a lot of your recipes that you do make your own cheese for.
Yeah. So, because it's not super hard.
The pizza specifically, like almost always make that cheese from scratch.
Yeah, mostly because I can't find one I like in the store as much as the one we can make here.
Yeah. So how did the popularity of the vegan food increase since the 70s?
Yeah, so I think one of the first things I would say in like the new era of veganism was Meatless Monday.
Yeah.
It's a movement where basically the ask is don't eat meat on Mondays.
Right.
That everyone can participate in, whether you're an omnivore or like if you're vegan or vegetarian, you participate in that every day.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. I actually have a friend that tries to do Meatless Mondays. Yeah. She's an omnivore, but she tries to eat more like vegan or vegetarian plant-based stuff. So I think she started incorporating Meatless Mondays into her routine.
Yeah.
But that actually launched in 2003.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, as part of like a public health initiative.
Yeah, and I think that was actually kind of a reimagining or a resurgence of something from World War I back in 1917, where they asked citizens in the U.S. to conserve food for the troops overseas by doing meatless Mondays and wheatless Wednesdays.
I don't think I could do a wheatless Wednesday.
It's for the troops.
It's for the troops. Oh, yeah, I guess I'll do wheatless one day.
But yeah, so back, in 2003, they were like, okay, let's bring this idea back, but make it for the, not in wartime, just for the general public to try to get more familiar with the idea.
Right, because there are some health benefits from cutting out animal products.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting that even back in 1917, we were doing like meatless Mondays.
Yeah. And then, in 2010s, we kind of shifted into more of a mainstream type situation with the rise of social media.
Yeah, you had Facebook, Instagram, MySpace before that. But yeah, I think specifically with Instagram, it's kind of, it used to be more picture heavy, like very...
There's all pictures.
Aesthetic, like pictures that we're taking. Yeah. So, but the interesting thing about Instagram that I don't think any of the previous ones had really done was the hashtags.
Yeah.
So you could get your videos or your pictures out in front of other people that you weren't following or that weren't following you.
Yeah. Hashtag vegan.
Yeah. So that's actually started trending. People started seeing vegan food because people were taking really aesthetic, nice, beautiful pictures of their vegan food, and like normal mainstream people that have never known a vegan or a vegetarian were like seeing those pictures.
And they're like, oh, that actually looks great.
Yeah. It's not just rice and beans. That's that's crazy.
Yeah. So this is proof that like sharing pictures of awesome looking vegan food really works.
Yeah. So if you've ever thought, maybe I should just like create an Instagram or another social media account just to show like pictures of things I'm eating.
Yeah.
People will see that it actually does make an impact.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're just spreading awareness.
Yeah. And then there was kind of the rise of Veganuary. So you may remember our podcast with Stu from Veganuary a few months ago.
One of my favorite podcasts ever.
But the Veganuary campaign launched in 2014 with just over 3,000 participants. Since then, it's obviously exploded in popularity, introduced vegan food to many, many, many non-vegans over the last decade.
Like millions.
Right.
Right? It's crazy how much this has exploded because I think it started in the UK and now it's like, I think it's in... I can't remember how many countries, but it's very global.
Yeah. And, this is basically like the month of January. They put out a 30-day campaign helping people, try more vegan food and give them tips and tricks and things like that along the way. But it's hugely successful. So
yeah.
Another thing that changed over time was kind of the improvement of the vegan alternative foods. So the increased availability of vegan products like vegan cheeses and meats has made veganism way more widespread because now you're seeing it in the grocery store right next to all the other products.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I went vegetarian back in 2000. And I remember there were not, like, it was obviously way better than the 1970s.
Yeah.
But, like, there weren't many options. I remember I was basically able to get vegan hot dogs, not corn dogs, vegan hot dogs, and that were not very good.
Yeah.
And then like Morningstar chicken nuggets, and I think Morningstar had like a veggie burger that I used to get a lot. But I remember, so I was vegetarian, not vegan, but I remember when we were shopping, I saw a vegan cheese option, but there was only one on the shelf.
Yeah.
And it was awful. Like it was really quite bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's so I remember we only bought it once and my parents tried it and they were just like, oh my God, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
And it was also like pretty expensive at the time compared to dairy cheeses. So
yeah,
it's interesting to see how far we've come.
Yeah. And, that's an easy way when you can just see a product on the shelf at the store. It's an easy way for people to be introduced to vegan food without having to learn a lot about cooking and how to work with new foods. They just grab this product and like, oh, that's vegan or that's like a meat alternative or something. I'll try that.
Yeah.
One of the good ones we found the blackbird seitan at the grocery store, and we tried that and ended up eating it all the time for like a year straight.
Yeah. Even bought like a mini freezer to store it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think, while I think most vegans aren't solely relying on like processed convenience vegan food items, it's really helpful if you're just starting your vegan journey and you don't know how to use things like tofu and you don't know how to make your own plant-based cheeses.
Yeah, definitely. It's very helpful.
Which I think is why we're seeing like an increase in vegans, because like before it was like, if you join the vegan movement, you need to learn all of this stuff.
Yeah.
You need to like learn a whole new set of skills and have a bunch more knowledge than you do on different food types. But now you could just drop into veganism and like make it for a while before you actually had to learn how to cook, you know?
Yeah, and, that's actually helpful because if you're becoming a vegan, like, the food isn't the only thing you have to learn. There's a whole lot of other stuff that comes with it, like, how do I stop using leather, or, like, these fibers I can't use or whatever. So there's a lot of stuff you have to think about, and you can help take the load off a little bit by pushing off the food decisions a little.
Yeah, and it just makes, and even if you are trying to learn how to cook, there are some days that you're going to, like, get off work late and you're just going to be super annoyed, and having convenient vegan food options that you can go back to, super helpful. Or even just Burger King with the Impossible patties. Yeah. Very helpful.
Definitely.
For times when you're already stressed.
Yep. And then, Google also helped, launch veganism into the mainstream a little bit. Google's been around for a long time, but in 2016, the Google searches for vegan increased by 90%. Wow. By 2017, veganism was widely considered to have gone mainstream, and a lot of that's actually attributed to a lot of the excellent documentaries that came out and sparked interest in veganism around that same time.
Yeah, I know Forks Over Knives, What the Health, Game Changers, like all of those came out in the, 2010s-ish.
Yeah, roughly around that time frame. So they're going pretty hard, and, obviously that sparks interest, especially those movies were all kind of attacking it from a different angle.
Yeah.
So you're able to cover, like, the concerns of multiple different types of groups of people.
Right. It's like not necessarily vegan documentaries, but plant-based documentaries that might cover human health or environmental. And then, there are obviously ones about the animal impact. But I actually think the Google point is really interesting because, back before that was like available, I mean, you would have to go to the library and try to find a vegetarian or a vegan cookbook, or maybe you'd be able to find one at a bookstore if your bookstore happened to like want to stock the shelves with something so niche. But now you have Google and social media and a bunch of food blogs, you can basically find any recipe you could ever possibly imagine veganized.
I wonder how often the cooks that were always on TV, like Martha Stewart and Paula Deen, I wonder how often they delved into vegan food.
I think never, actually.
Definitely probably not Paula Deen.
No, and this is actually really interesting because I just saw something about Gordon Ramsay, who we like to watch Gordon Ramsay stuff because he's mean and British and kind of amusing. But he used to like adamantly hate vegans and talk shit about them on all of his shows. But I guess one of his daughters got him like interested in vegan cooking and kind of opened his eyes on that. And now he's, I think, doing like commercials for plant-based butter or something.
Yeah, I've seen him cook vegan on TikTok and stuff a few times.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's cool. I mean, I think that goes to show you how mainstream it's gotten. It's even chefs that were adamantly against veganism are kind of having to adopt it and do stuff with it to stay relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially like, we watch a bunch of the cooking shows and stuff, and they'll have like a vegan challenge or a vegan person on there, and everybody's like, "Oh no, we can't have butter." Come on,
it's really not that big of a deal. Or they do a vegan week, which I always think is really fun.
Yeah,
I really enjoy like cooking and baking shows, but they do kind of suck because there's so many animal products in them. Oh. I would really love a fully vegan cooking show.
Yeah, definitely.
Or like a fully vegan baking competition would be so much fun.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think, and I've seen this actually on Threads a lot, people just like asking for it because they like Top Chef or Master Chef or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you gave us 1 week of a vegan challenge, but if you could just do a fully vegan season would be so cool.
Yeah.
And there are definitely enough talented vegan chefs to run a season like that.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to have the Deficient Vegans cooking show one day. So now let's talk about when some of our favorite vegan staple foods were invented. Maybe give a little history walkthrough. So plant-based milks have been around and consumed for centuries.
Which may surprise you since everyone keeps saying don't call them plant-based milks. That's a newfangled thing with you vegans.
Yeah. The oldest is actually coconut milk, likely in use for over 5,000 years.
5,000 years? When was the first cow milk, I wonder?
I was just thinking the same thing, actually. Is coconut milk older than dairy milk?
Dude, maybe.
I mean, logistically, it seems like people would have tried to drink a coconut before they tried to suck a cow teat.
Suckle a cow teat, yeah.
Anyway, maybe.
One's a lot more weird.
Soy milk has roots in 14th century China. Almond milk dates back to 13th century Middle East.
Wow.
And then modern versions of these that you can buy at the grocery stores now arrived in the early 20th century. Oat milk specifically was kind of a more modern invention from the 1990s.
But I remember before oat milk was invented, soy milk was like the non-dairy milk choice.
It was like the go-to.
Yeah, I don't even think the other ones were really on the shelf as options.
Yeah.
And now I think, most vegans I've talked to actually still prefer soy milk.
Yeah, that's the one we use now. We actually really like oat milk, but soy milk seems like it's better for all the stuff we use it for. Plus, it's a little higher protein. So a little bit.
Significantly higher protein on a percentage basis.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I think more cost effective if you're looking at it on like a gram of protein per dollar or even 100 calories per dollar.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, and they've been called milk for a really long time.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to this processed myth, I would say you can make pretty much all of these at home.
Yeah.
In your kitchen.
Yeah.
So.
Next is tofu, invented in China around 200 BC.
Thank you, China.
It's often called processed, but you can literally make it in your kitchen.
Yeah. And I don't even think it's very hard.
Yeah. It's also known as bean curd, and it has been a staple in East Asia cuisine for centuries now. According to legend, tofu was discovered accidentally during the Han Dynasty in China. I don't think it's actually documented where it was invented, but that's the myth around it.
The legend.
Yeah.
The legend around it.
They say that a cook accidentally curdled some soy milk while preparing a meal for the emperor, and the emperor was pleased with the resulting dish, and tofu was born.
Okay, this kind of reminds me of that show.
Yeah.
So there's a show that we watched. We actually watched it twice back to back because it was so good. But it was Bon Appetit, Your Majesty. It's, I don't know, I think it's a Korean show, but it's dubbed in English, so you don't have to just read subtitles. But it was really good because basically every episode there's some, very high stakes situation happening, and
it requires the perfect dish.
It requires the perfect dish, and the vast majority of the episode is just like slow cooking of this dish and explaining like origins of how it was used back in the day. It's actually quite fascinating, but they did a lot of stuff with tofu.
Yeah, it was a really good show.
I kind of want to go watch it again. And there's a love story in it. There's also some time traveling. I mean,
yeah, who would have thought that?
A lot of great selling points for Bon Appetit, Your Majesty.
Yeah, Koreans really love their time travel.
They do.
Little time travel details in a movie that otherwise has nothing to do with time travel.
Yeah, the first Korean movie I ever saw was My Sassy Girl.
Yeah.
And they throw it in at the end, and I'm like...
Oh, is that a spoiler?
Oh, it's pretty old.
We won't tell you what happens, but time travel adjacent.
I don't think it's a spoiler because it actually has nothing to do with the plot. They just like have a random maybe it alludes to potential time travel at the very, very end.
The last frame. Basically.
Yeah, with no context to the rest of the film. Yeah. And it also doesn't affect the plot really much at all. So that's another good one.
Yeah, check those both out. Tofu experienced a surge in the West during the late 1960s to 1980s. Kind of the counterculture movement, growing interest in vegetarianism, all that stuff comes together. Also, the rise of health-conscious diets, trying to eat healthier food.
Yeah.
All, centered or converged on, hey, let's eat some tofu.
Yeah. Okay. Did you watch the show Doug?
Yeah.
On Nickelodeon?
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever heard about tofu, it's the fictional band in the show Doug, the Beats. They had a song called Killer Tofu.
Yeah.
Oh man, what are the lyrics? Hold please. Okay, here are some highlights of the lyrics. Fast food feels fuzzy because it's made from stuff that's scuzzy. I always thought I was such a nerd, I refused to touch that strange bean curd. I wouldn't eat it, but it ate you. Killer tofu. And then it also talks about some other sugary foods and stuff, but not tofu. Can I actually play a little bit of it?
Just a few seconds, yeah.
Okay, don't yell at us.
Whoever owns Doug now.
We're trying to get you more views on Doug.
Refuse to touch that strange bean curd. I wouldn't eat it, wow, but it ate you.
Killer tofu.
So if you liked that, it's on Spotify. And I do listen to it regularly. It's on several of my playlists.
All right. Next up is Seitan. This way of preparing wheat gluten has been documented in China since the 6th century.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The 6th century? That's crazy.
Throwback. It's widely consumed by the Chinese as a substitute for meat, especially among adherents of Chinese Buddhism.
Which were mostly vegetarian, right?
As far as I know, yeah. Wheat gluten arrived in the West by the 18th century, and by the 1850s, Western doctors were recommending wheat gluten in diets for diabetics.
That's interesting.
Yeah. In the United States also, the Seventh-day Adventists promoted the consumption of wheat gluten from the late 19th century. It became a staple in 1970s health food stores, and then in the 1980s and 1990s, it had a big expansion. And the popularity grew and accelerated when brands like Tofurkey started making commercial seitan products.
That's
And
pretty cool.
They're still around.
Yeah, they are still around. I think we actually got a Tofurkey roast a couple Thanksgivings ago.
They have they're mainly known for lunch meat type stuff.
Now I think one of their original products was actually like a whole Tofurkey.
Yeah, I agree.
And now, it's more of a lunch meat.
Yeah.
But I think Seitan is really interesting because most people don't understand what it is at all.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll immediately be like, it's super processed.
I see this about Seitan more than anything.
I'm like, it's literally, well, the way I make it, it's vital wheat gluten plus water.
Yeah.
But you can also, and you could say, oh, well, vital wheat gluten super processed. And it's like, well, cool, but you can also make it with flour and water, and then it's the washing method.
Yeah.
So even less processed. Bam. Probably maybe the least processed if you just make it with flour and water.
Yeah, I think out of all these, it's probably the least processed.
Yeah.
Next is Tempeh. So Tempeh was invented in Indonesia about 300 to 400 years ago. This one's a little newer. Historians trace...
Newer.
Yeah, these foods were all ancient, is the point here. Historians trace its origins to the 1600s when it was first documented in central Java. It's a fermented soybean cake, and was originally created accidentally when fungal spores grew on soybeans wrapped in traditional leaves.
And they were like, hey, let's eat that shit.
Yeah. It's funny how many of these were accidents, but I guess a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Now, we don't really eat tempeh much, but you know what? I get comments about my Rice Krispie treats looking like tempeh all the time.
I guess I kind of do. In the 1960s, Western scientific research into tempeh began in the United States, and that helped to transition from an Indonesian regional staple to a globally recognized meat alternative.
Yeah, and the whole food plant-based crowd really, really loves this one.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who really like it. I've tried it a couple times. I don't know if I just haven't tried it the right way or the right flavor or what.
Yeah. It's like I've made it twice and then I stopped trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people really love it. So there's definitely a way to make it taste really good.
Yeah. Next up's one of our favorites, TVP.
Which you might think is super, super new.
Yeah.
Is it super, super new?
It's not, but it's kind of new. It was invented in the 1960s. So it's like...
I feel like that's not that new.
That was 20 years ago, right? I can never get
60 years ago? 60 plus years ago?
Yeah. I think... Yeah, I always get this, I still think of it like, I feel like I'm just perpetually in the year 2000 as far as like thinking about how far away things are. I'm like, the 60s was like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
No.
So anyway, this was invented in the 1960s by the company Archer Daniels Midland in Chicago it was basically a food processing company. So that's kind of cool. It's made in Chicago.
Yeah, I love that for us.
Yeah. By 1968, it was heavily used in various food products. The popularity continued to grow in 1971 after it got approved for use in school lunch programs.
I actually think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was reading about the invention of it, and I guess originally it was going to be used in chili. That's like what their main intent was, to add volume and protein to chili.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's really good in chili, so that's how we use it most. One of the hundreds of ways we use it. It is just one ingredient, by the way. It's soybeans, but it does go through a process to defat it, so to take the fat out of the soybean.
Yeah, but if that's too much processing for you, soy curls are actually slightly less processed because they don't go through the defatting process.
Yeah, and those were invented in Oregon by Butler Foods around the year 2000, and they basically still sell the most popular soy curl product.
And they're delicious, by the way.
I really like soy curls.
I like them too.
Yeah, and then, we said earlier, protein powders are basically just as processed as TVP, and they're used regularly by the same people who talk about how processed TVP is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, saying TVP is like way too processed for you feels... maybe if you're like super whole foods plant-based.
Yeah.
TVP would be over the line for you. But for general people that I see commenting it's processed, I'm like, I'm guessing you eat a lot more highly processed stuff.
Yep. Next up is veggie burgers. So people probably are pretty familiar with these more than this other stuff.
Yeah, and there's been quite an evolution around veggie burgers.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot of stuff. It's not even necessarily like one type of burger.
Yeah, I mean, there was like the black bean burger craze, and then there was the one I liked the most, which they're not vegan, which is really sad. I think they use egg. It was the Morningstar had a veggie burger that had a bunch of different actual vegetables in it.
Yeah.
That was really, really good.
Do mushroom burgers count as veggie burgers? I don't think mushroom's technically a vegetable, but...
I mean, people say portobello burgers. My dad used to cook me a lot of portobello burgers.
Yeah.
Burger, in quotes, you know?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't really sure. I mean, I think my parents just didn't really know what to cook, so
Yeah.
if he was grilling something, he would just grill me a portobello burger.
Why don't they just call those porta burgers?
I don't know. You could try to make that a thing if you want.
I just did.
Okay.
All right. Everybody, be with me on this. Porta burgers.
Porta burgers.
All right.
That makes me feel like they're just portable, but
all burgers are portable.
I know. It feels redundant. I don't know.
No, it's Porto burger, not Porta burger.
What about Bella burgers?
That's way better. Why do you have to come up with something that's way better?
I don't know.
Anyway. All right. Anyway, we'll let the people vote which one they like.
Yeah.
By 1985, the Vegaburger was the most popular one at the stores, and the brand Garden Burger released its first vegetable-based burger commercially in 1992. Then the following year, Boca Burger was founded, which is still around.
Yeah.
Get those sometimes.
This is the one I remember seeing a lot in like the 2000s because that was before Impossible or Beyond even hit the market.
Yeah.
Boca burgers. They are still around. They're harder to find though.
Yeah.
The original one has crazy good macros.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, so they released it in 92. And then by 2002, they were bringing in more than $70 million a year on their Boca Burgers, and Kraft Foods bought the company.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
$70 million a year?
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good.
For some veggie burgers. Not bad.
Yeah.
2002, Burger King introduced their BK Veggie Burger. So it's the same year that Kraft acquired Boca Burger. So they were probably like, oh, this veggie burger thing looks pretty good.
Honestly, that was probably the first fast food chain to actually try to have a vegetarian or vegan option.
For a burger.
For probably anything that's like protein related.
Yeah, that's probably true, yeah.
I mean, excluding, Asian places which have always been serving tofu, but specifically like an American fast food chain.
Yeah.
I think this is probably maybe the first ever protein option for vegetarians and vegans.
It wouldn't surprise me, yeah. In 2013, the first lab-grown burger was produced. Beyond Meat produced also their Beyond Chicken Strip, and then later launched the Beyond Burger in 2016.
Wow. So they're actually pretty new. I guess for some reason I didn't realize they were that new of a company.
Yeah. Also in 2016, Impossible launched their Impossible Burger.
So Beyond came first.
Slightly. But I think they released the burger product around the same time.
I feel like, okay, this is maybe a pretty niche comparison, but I feel like the Beyond versus Impossible Burger thing reminds me of, like, are you a Backstreet Boys fan or an NSYNC fan?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I feel like you can learn a lot about someone.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'll take whichever one pops up in front of me.
Well, I feel that way about the burgers, not so much the bands. I'm a Backstreet Boys girl for life.
What about 98 Degrees? Those guys never get any love.
No, I know, and they don't. I think they're just a different vibe.
Yeah.
But I like 98 Degrees too.
Yeah. Does Chumbawamba count as a boy band?
I don't think so. But, what I did hear is they get knocked down, but they always get up again.
That's true. Yeah. And then 2019, Burger King coming back again, launched the Impossible Whopper nationwide to signal a massive mainstream pivot into this plant-based burger situation.
I really wanted to find information on, and I know this would be impossible to find, but I really wanted to know, like, what percentage of people buying the Impossible Whopper are actually vegan or vegetarian, because most people that I know don't really buy that are vegan.
Yeah.
But I've heard a lot of omnivores actually get those because maybe their doctor said, oh, you got high cholesterol, maybe reduce your red meat consumption. So that's what they get.
Most people get to that conversation. At least most men get to that conversation at some point. So
I want to know, what is the percentage of omnivores actually buying Impossible Whoppers? I bet it's high.
Yeah. Next category is vegan cheeses. So in the early 1990s, the only brand of vegan cheese available in the United States was soy maize, which I think is the one you said you didn't like.
Dude, I don't know what the brand was that I tried because we only tried it once. But what I will say is I didn't try anything in the 90s, but I did try something in 2000, the year 2000, and it sucked ass. And vegan cheeses have come so far. I would say even farther than like the meat alternatives. Like vegan cheeses have really drastically improved.
Yeah, and there's a ton of varieties.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Especially there's even the little more independent type cheese shops.
Yeah.
Like the Peaceful Rebel cheese, Cheese and Thank You, all of those. Like they're not even necessarily huge companies, but they make awesome cheeses.
So good that you almost can't tell they're vegan.
Yeah.
Like, I think you could probably trick people.
Yeah, for sure.
I know omnivores that buy Rebel cheese.
Yeah. Daya came out in 2008. Miyoko.
Yeah, that was one of the first ones, and it's improved a lot because I remember in 2008 it kind of sucked because I remember trying it really early.
Daya seems like it's always been the one that was like on the shelf when it was like the vegetarian pizzas, or well, I guess not weird, the vegan pizzas and stuff. It seems like most of those were Daya. A lot of the products that weren't like just cheese had the Daya cheese on them.
It's gotten a lot better since 2008, though.
Yeah. And then there was Miyoko's in 2014. You like that one, right?
I think Miyoko's really changed the game on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It was like a what do they call it? Like a gourmet cheese.
Right, yeah, more artisanal.
Artisanal, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
It's like, yes, their slices were good, and they had like good vegan butter, but honestly, like where she really changed the game was that liquid mozzarella cheese for pizzas. Yeah. And then she also had like those little gourmet cheese blocks that you could find, but you can't find those anymore, and I don't know if they're bringing those back, and also I guess F Miyoko's right now, right?
Oh, man, I don't know. No, she doesn't own it anymore, right?
Right, yeah, they kind of screwed her. Yeah. I think a couple times.
Yeah. Then there's Violife, which was actually founded in the 90s in Greece, but it only expanded to the U.S. markets in like 2017, 2018.
That blew my mind when I read that. I did not realize it wasn't an American-based company, actually.
Yeah.
The 1990s, Violife is actually, I think, my favorite shredded cheese.
Yeah, that's the one we tend to get for shredded when we need that. So.
Yeah, and they just won, like, we covered that last week. They won 4 Tasty Awards and some Veg News Award.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
A lot of good stuff.
And then just a couple of other companies you might recognize. Morningstar, who we've had a love-hate relationship with in the past.
Yeah, it's like I love them because they kept me fed as a child when I was vegetarian, didn't know what to eat. Yeah. But now they like use the word plant-based very willy-nilly. And you would think that would mean vegan, and it definitely doesn't.
Yeah. So 1975, they came out with their original soy-based meat alternatives. And then in 1986, they launched their chicken nuggets, which I think made them really popular.
Their chicken nuggets, and we still get their chicken nuggets sometimes. They're super good. That's what fueled me as a 12-year-old.
They're pretty high protein. I think it's just soy isolate or something.
They're super delicious.
Yeah. Tofurkey came out in 95. And then Gardein, who also makes a bunch of like fake chicken products, came out. They were founded in 2003, started selling a lot of their products in 2009.
I think Gardein is the most underrated one.
Yeah.
Like you hear a lot of talk about Beyond, Impossible, Morningstar. I think for the most part, I like Gardein's products more than any of those.
I agree. Yeah.
And they have some like seafood options. They have really good vegan fish sticks.
Yeah.
Or fish fillets.
They're both.
They're not in fish stick form.
They don't have sticks.
They don't have stick form.
They're more like fillets.
Yeah,
like
they're
small.
for grown-ups. I think they should come out with a vegan fish stick though, because I mean, who doesn't like those?
Yeah. So that's kind of a walkthrough of the history of how vegan food has changed over time. And some of that is kind of it's become a little more processed over time than it was originally, just like the scratch foods and stuff. But at the same time, that makes it more convenient a lot of the time.
It's more convenient. And also, I think the other takeaway is that even though all of those foods exist, that doesn't necessarily mean that all vegans eat those foods.
Yeah.
Because you can still make your own vegan meats at home with like lesser processed ingredients like tofu or seitan or TVP, and you can also make your own vegan cheeses and stuff at home with like cashews or tofu.
Right. So now let's talk a little bit about where the stigma around the vegan processed foods come from. This didn't just come up out of nowhere, and I think a big part of it is that like growing up, most people didn't even know what a fully vegan plate of food looked like.
Yeah. The same way like I didn't grow up like eating it Jewish friends' houses.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know necessarily what is kosher, like what can't you eat on a kosher diet.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of similar. Like if you didn't have friends that you went over to eat at that had like fully vegan families, and veganism is actually still such a small percentage of the population that most people aren't getting exposed to that. And I think also most vegans try to like find community with other vegans. So they might not even be sharing that kind of thing with their omnivore friends.
And also inside of families, even maybe only like one person is vegan. It's not even necessarily the whole family. So
I think a lot of people just don't have the context of what do vegans eat.
Yeah. I think there are 5 big things that kind of feed into the stigma in general. One of them is like when you go through the store, what people actually see when they're looking at like the vegan substitutes.
Yeah.
So
like the things next to regular cheeses, you're going to have your vegan cheeses.
Yeah.
And then if you go to the frozen food aisle, when you're looking at things like next to, I don't know what kind of meats they sell in the frozen food section, but those are, you're going to see like your vegan hamburgers and your vegan meat alternatives.
Yeah, all the things that are like literally labeled as vegan or plant-based. Right. So you see those like engineered foods, and you see those are the things that are labeled as vegan, and you're like, okay, I guess that's vegan food.
Right.
Right.
But you miss all the stuff that doesn't get labeled that way, which is obviously naturally vegan, like beans, rice, oats, apples.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily say vegan anywhere on them.
Yeah. So people tend to picture what's been marketed as vegan, which is like a small processed subculture or subsection of like the vegan food we actually eat, or of the food we actually eat.
Right, because like the single ingredients aren't going to be labeled as vegan because they're single ingredients, and you're going to know if those are vegan or not.
Right.
Like even Vital Wheat Gluten, I don't think necessarily says in big letters that it's vegan. Neither does TVP. It might say it on the back somewhere, but
yeah, it doesn't really need to because it's one thing.
And it's also like not promoted as a vegan thing.
Yeah.
It just sits there with like other foods.
Right.
Like flour's also vegan. It doesn't say vegan on it.
Yeah.
Peanut butter's vegan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff.
Something else that feeds into the stigma is like your exposure at restaurants. So if a restaurant adds like one vegan option, it's almost always like a Beyond Burger.
Yeah. It is usually almost always a Beyond Burger, which is kind of funny because I don't even think that's necessarily what vegans want on the menu.
Right.
We'd rather have you make something with tofu or seitan or like, anything else.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. If that's the only thing on the menu, I'm going to order it.
Oh, it's definitely better than nothing.
Yeah. Or
a salad, a dressingless salad.
Or the place you tried to go to that was going to have like a bowl full of peppers or something.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. That was crazy. And my boss was like, if there's a vegan option, I called. And it's like literally a bowl of like peppers that you would maybe eat as an appetizer as a group. And I think they were really spicy too. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to that.
Yeah. Another one is the marketing, issues. Like we were kind of talking about, beans aren't advertised as vegan.
Right. I don't even think most beans are advertised, right?
Like they don't get advertised at all, really. But
and most Whole Foods don't.
Yeah. Right. But they are advertising the products, like Beyond Oat Milk Vegan Cheese.
Yeah.
But like nobody's advertising dry beans or advertising rice necessarily.
Yeah. They might be advertising like 1 minute rice that you can make in the microwave that is also vegan, but most rice is vegan anyways by nature, so they're not even leaning into that.
Yeah, so that public perception gets shaped by like the things that get advertised to them and not what is actually eaten. So.
Right. The only thing they know that's vegan are all the processed vegan things that they see, and also apparently we eat grass and rabbit food as well.
Yeah, rabbit food's a big one for me. Is that just carrots? I do like carrots. Maybe I do.
I like carrots.
Anyway.
I do like some things that rabbits eat, but that's, I wouldn't say the vegan diet.
And then there's kind of the natural, quote unquote, fallacy. So the idea is like a cow makes milk just goes in a glass, and that feels natural.
Yeah.
Whereas you have like soy, and it has to go through some factory process, goes into a carton. It just feels more manufactured.
Yeah. I think most of us know that you can't just drink it straight from the tap if you're drinking cow's milk, right?
It's not recommended. Yeah, I mean, like the dairy supply chain we've talked about a couple times, extremely industrial as well. High throughput, a lot of steps in between the animal and the carton. And we're going to come back to this in a minute and kind of walk through what it actually takes to make a glass of either kind of milk.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of they call like what you might think of as like the Oreo gotcha. This is just kind of an example, but people are like, did you know Oreos are vegan? And so people then jump from like Oreos are vegan to all vegan food is junk food.
Yeah. I've seen that before. It's pretty weird.
Yeah. So it's like, just because there is junk food that is vegan doesn't mean all junk food is vegan.
Yeah, it's like that logic problem on the standardized tests.
Yeah. And then kind of for a bonus, this isn't necessarily like one of the big things that drives the stigma necessarily, but it definitely amplifies some of these other things, is that there's a very active counter messaging environment online and social media. So there's like carnivore influencers, the raw milk advocate people, dairy industry ad campaigns in general, and then like all these lawsuits over like labeling plant-based milks, stuff like that.
It kind of makes you feel like if they're arguing over not being able to call something a plant-based milk, are they hiding something?
Yeah.
Like it just gives the public a bad perception of vegan foods in general.
Right.
And then also, I will add on to that, is you also have the whole food plant-based crowd that likes to crap on vegans who don't eat a whole food plant-based diet.
Yeah.
And they actually do a lot more harm than even some of the carnivore people, because they're out there spreading it and coming from a place of like, I know things because I eat a vegan diet. That's
unfortunate. I would say like whole food plant-based diet is probably the healthier version, but I don't know why we have to fight about that necessarily.
Yeah.
Like that's a health issue. Like,
right.
You know, so. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that anyone that doesn't eat a whole food plant-based diet is necessarily a junk food vegan.
Right.
Because you can have balance.
Exactly. Also, they're like the wellness grifter types. They want you to buy their book to learn all the things the government is hiding from you or trying to poison you or whatever.
It's like the microwaves kill all nutrient people that I keep getting on my Bean Bowl video.
That's had a real resurgence lately.
I'm going to lose my fucking mind if I have to respond to one more person that's like, you shouldn't be using a microwave. It kills everything. You're basically eating crap.
Yeah. Where were we? Yeah, people just really like these sensationalized sound bites or like repeatable lines or memes or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you say them enough and if enough people say them enough, they start feeling like there's truth to it, but then you can't actually find any kind of legitimate article that shows evidence of a lot of the stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't be bothered by the facts.
What is it? Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, exactly. That happens a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also a little bit of an element of kind of some like, maybe not intentional all the time, but some racial discrimination going on.
Oh, absolutely. I think especially if you're American or maybe even in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even though tofu and seitan have been around for a long time, they're still seen as like quote unquote unusual because like the pilgrims didn't eat them or something.
Like the American pilgrims didn't eat those, so they obviously don't exist.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just like, I think I can only speak to the U.S. experience, but it seems like the vast majority of people that live here have a very limited historical understanding of what people in other cultures eat in general.
Yeah.
And like, so much so that, okay, this might be like a niche experience, but I feel like I've seen people, it's like, oh, we're going to go to an Ethiopian restaurant tonight. We're so brave.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're so brave for trying out this new food. And it's like this food that the Ethiopian people have been eating for centuries. Like, yeah, super brave.
I think maybe next time somebody thinks about saying something like that, they should think about how they might feel if they said it in a room full of people who eat that every day.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty weird in that context, you know?
It'd be like somebody coming here and being like, I'm going to go get some French fries. I'm so brave.
I'm so brave. I ate an American hamburger. You actually might be brave if you're eating an American hamburger.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, some people just, I've seen this a lot growing up kind of in the country. Like some people will entirely dismiss quote unquote ethnic food, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean, which is obviously ridiculous. Like, is that food weird or is it just normal everyday food for millions of people?
Or are you just very limited on what you know about the world?
Yeah. And it's like, it's weird because you're saying like, when you say, you know, like ethnic food, you're talking about like food from multiple continents that aren't even the same. How can you say like you don't like this whole culture's food and this whole culture's food and this whole what do you mean? What is the spice you don't like? I don't understand.
Honestly, the way when I've heard that, what I am hearing is I don't like food that's not white people food.
Yeah.
Whether that means Americanized food or like Italian food seems fine. You know, like, you know what I mean? It's more of like anything that doesn't feel like it would be in an American restaurant is quote unquote ethnic food.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, our cheeseburgers are the height of culinary masterpiece, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I've always wondered, when you tell somebody that you're vegan, what do they assume that your fridge looks like?
Yeah, I feel that most omnivores don't have a good general idea of that at all.
Yeah.
And I think, I've had a lot of conversations where I try to explain that, because there are some people that will ask in a genuine way of like, what do you eat and how do you get protein? But then there are like some people that are just fucking rude.
Yeah.
And I just will not engage in conversation, where they're just like, oh, all vegans eat is salad. All you eat is salad.
Yeah, not everybody's having that conversation in good faith. So.
Yeah. Pick your battles. I mean, I think, though, if you're talking to someone who is genuinely curious as to what vegans eat, it's a good time to educate.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're curious because they're interested in trying some of that.
Yeah. And I think, once you think through some of these things and you start to see the picture form on why the stigma exists, it makes it a lot easier to kind of correct and reframe some of those like misinterpretations.
Right. Like, where is this misinformation coming from?
Yeah.
And once you know that, you can kind of have a better conversation.
Yeah. So I think, as part of trying to change that frame, I would say, first of all, like, vegan food just describes what ingredients are not used and not what ingredients are added. So, like, vegan food doesn't really exist. There's no magical vegan ingredient. You're just subtracting the animal products.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it, too, because I feel like what I've seen from omnivores is they act as if vegan food, you won't have like any options.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredibly limiting what you can eat, but you're really only removing a handful of things you don't eat anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and then those things do, to their credit, I guess, those little things are in a lot of packaged foods for whatever reason. Like, milk finds its way into a lot of stuff, egg finds its way into a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as just like food ingredients, you're only really taking away a handful, and almost all of those have a replacement that would even make the recipe almost exactly the same.
Right.
So, I mean, and an example is like, you wouldn't look at a potato and say a potato is vegan food.
No, I wouldn't think so.
So, yeah.
Although some people will say that kind of shit. I've heard people be like, well, I pretty much eat vegan until lunch. And I'm like, so you eat cereal with oat milk for breakfast? Okay.
Intermittent vegan.
All right. That's not really a thing, but all right.
Yeah.
Thank you for not eating animals in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like, apples, vegan. Apples have always been vegan. Things like rice, beans, oats, potatoes, most of the entire produce section, most of the bulk bins you see in the grocery store, most of the bread aisle, all that stuff's just vegan. And you're like, no matter what your diet is, you're eating all that stuff throughout your life.
Right. You're already eating so much vegan food as an
Quote,
omnivore.
unquote, vegan food.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the vegan label slapped on it.
Right.
Because it's obvious.
Yeah. So some of the vegan staples, like the ingredients that are inside them, like we have oats. Oats are just oats. It's one ingredient.
Yeah.
Something like beans or lentils, typically just the beans or the lentils. Sometimes it's got some salt and water in a can.
Right. If it's canned instead of dried.
Yeah. And then even something like tofu, which some people think of as like some lab experiment sometimes for some reason, it's just typically like 3 ingredients. It's got soy, water, and a coagulant.
Right.
The same as like a cheese, basically.
Yeah, exactly. If you can make it in your kitchen, it's probably not super processed. And you can definitely make tofu in your kitchen.
Yeah. And then even some of the weirder stuff that people...
quote unquote weird.
Yeah, the weirder stuff that people raise their eyebrows at is like seitan, which is just, like you said earlier, wheat gluten and water.
Or even flour and water, and then use the wash method.
Yeah. TVP is just defatted soy flour. That's it.
It's one ingredient. That shocks people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I have a lot of people just constantly ask me what TVP is, and I'm like, it's literally defatted soy flour. And they're like, it's just soy flour? It's like, no, it's just soy flour.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. They look processed because they look a little unusual to you, but it's just like 1 to 2 ingredients.
Yeah, just because you don't know what something is doesn't automatically mean it's highly processed.
Right. So we have an example, like a kitchen test. What does it actually take to make milk? Right.
Interesting.
So comparing what it takes to make like a dairy milk versus a plant milk.
I know which one I think is easier.
So dairy milk starts, by the way, with you have to have a cow.
You have to have a female cow, and you also have to impregnate her over and over and over again, because only cows that give birth produce milk.
And then a pregnant cow has a calf, so you have to deal with the calf every time you get the cow pregnant.
Yeah. And the calf is going to want to eat the milk, so you got to figure out something else to feed the baby calf.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to sell the milk or you're trying to eat the milk yourself.
Yeah. And so after you figure out the cow situation, you have industrial milking equipment, refrigerated transport to move the milk. You have pasteurization, which is like you have to be able to heat the milk at a high temperature.
Right.
Homogenization.
Although there's the big resurgence of non-pasteurized cow milk.
Yeah, would not recommend that. I've seen, this is kind of a funny side tangent. I've seen a lot of people that are like, just buy raw milk and boil it. It's like, okay.
Pasteurize it at home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so just it goes to show, like, people don't really know what they're saying a lot.
They don't know what goes into making their own food.
Yeah. And then homogenization, where it's like force milk under high pressure through a tiny valve to break up little fat pieces inside it. Standardization, which is where you skim the cream off the milk, remix it to try to get like 1%, 2% whole milk, depending on what kind you want.
Not full fat milk,
Yeah.
which is what comes out of a cow.
Yeah.
And most people aren't buying that.
Yeah. Fortification, where you add vitamins to the milk.
Yeah, which happens for pretty much anything on the shelf.
Yep. And then like refrigerated packaging and distribution.
Yeah. So do you think you could do that in your kitchen?
I don't think so. I could probably do the pasteurization part, I guess.
What if you had a cow?
Man, I don't know. It still seems like it'd be a lot of work.
A long process, really. Like, how long does a cow take to give birth?
A while.
Yeah.
You have to, do you buy the cow when it's a baby or when it's an adult? Or
yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
What does your HOA think about your cow? I don't know. And then, so for oat milk, if we're trying to make it at home, we soak a cup of oats in water for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That seems pretty doable. Blend with a couple cups of water for like 30 seconds, just a blender. So far we're up to oats, water, blender.
Oh, man, I don't know. That seems pretty hard.
Okay. And then we strain it through a nut milk bag or a cheesecloth. So we've got to get a hold of a cheesecloth.
Oh, well, those are really hard to find.
And then we're done. We can add some salt or sugar if we want.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't know. I feel like the oat milk seems easier.
So it takes about 10 minutes. I mean, yeah, you can make oat milk like right now in 10 minutes in your kitchen, basically, if you have some oats and water and a blender. You can't really do that in your kitchen for dairy milk unless you have a cow and you have a pasteurizer or boil it or whatever.
Yeah.
So which one of those, even if you think you can make the cow milk in your kitchen, which one of those sounds more processed to you?
Definitely the cow milk.
Yeah.
And, with oat milk, it's like you can make it even easier by buying one of those like nut milk machines or whatever.
Yeah.
The plant-based milk machines. And you just like basically toss in water and whatever and it does the whole shebang for you. So
yeah. Now, I will say, if you grew up on a farm, you're probably thinking right now that I'm an idiot. And people have been making milk at home for a long-ass time, right? And that's true, but the milk you make at home is very different from the milk that ends up on the shelf, whereas the oat milk we can make at home is pretty much the same as the milk you get on the shelf.
yeah, it might just have some like stabilizing ingredients
Right.
to make it more shelf-stable for longer.
Yeah, which we could also add here if we wanted to be able to keep it in the fridge longer.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, again, you still need a cow and everything that comes along with having a cow.
Yeah, and then I also want to bring up that the raising of a cow also involves like antibiotics and
Food,
fortified things.
Yeah. What's the total cost of ownership of your gallon of milk?
Yeah, quite high.
It's a lot easier to take care of a bag of oats.
Yeah, but even like the current cow milk manufacturing process of like what they do with dairy cows is also not like supernatural, because there's like antibiotics and other stuff that they're feeding the cows that wasn't normally done in nature. If you're trying to say natural, how we're making dairy milk right now is certainly not natural.
Yeah.
How it used to be 100 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, this example was kind of just like if you wanted to make milk for yourself at home a lot. If you go to like the industrial milk industry, that's like a whole different ballgame.
Right, yeah. You want to talk about processed.
And then, as far as cheeses go, the commercial plant cheeses people complain about, like Diane Violife, those are only highly processed because they're made to mimic the properties of dairy cheese, like the melty and stretchiness, because we can also make cheese at home very easily.
Oh, yeah.
I know you can make dairy cheese at home fairly easily too, but the reason that they're so processed in the store brands is because they're trying to mimic the store brand dairy cheese.
Right. Yeah, they're trying to be a one-to-one replacement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're making your own cheeses at home, you can do it with like soy milk or tofu or blended cashews. There's a lot of ways. You can add stretchiness with tapioca flour, like very minimal ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, homemade cashew cheese has like 5 ingredients. Daiya has more ingredients, but both are vegan, and neither is quote-unquote vegan food in the magical ingredient sense of the word.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is like what vegans eat in general is like a huge spectrum. Like you have, since it's not a health movement, it's an animal movement, you have people on all ends of the spectrum from like whole food plant-based to junk food vegan. And so like just blatantly stating that all vegan food is processed is a really weird take because not all vegans are junk food vegans.
Right. Yeah.
Just like all Americans are not all junk food Americans.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can kind of back this up with a little bit of data. This isn't a deep dive, just some basic terminology. But the actual definition of levels of processed food comes from a classification system called NOVA that's been around for a few decades. Basically, it has group 1, which is unprocessed or minimally processed, like apples, oats, and dry beans. It has group 2, which is considered culinary ingredients, so things you add to food, like salt, sugar, oil, things like that. It has group 3, which is processed food, and sometimes you'll see this considered minimally processed.
This is kind of interesting. The oil is considered a culinary ingredient and not processed.
Yeah, technically.
That's interesting because, so when I was looking up how TVP is made, soybean oil is made in the exact same way that TVP is made because they're one and the same, basically processed. So yeah, that's interesting.
I will say there are a lot of people kind of putting out papers and stuff saying we need to rethink NOVA in general, the classification system, but this is how it is right now. Then the group 3, which is processed or sometimes referred to as minimally processed, is stuff like canned beans, bread, and tofu. And then...
yeah, things that you could make at home, but you're buying for like a more convenienced option.
And that's kind of how they define it. There's a longer definition, but it's basically like if you could make it in your kitchen with ingredients you can get commonly, basically is like a processed food. And then there's group 4, ultra-processed food, which you'll see abbreviated as UPF online a lot. And that is like industrial formulations with ingredients you don't have in your kitchen or goes through some industrial process. Yeah, so some examples of kind of the combinations here. So vegan ultra-processed foods would be like Oreos or Beyond Burger or something like that.
Or maybe vegan cheeses.
Yeah, vegan cheese.
Or vegan meat alternatives.
Yeah.
That aren't like seitan or tofu or tempeh.
Yeah. And then some animal-based ultra-processed foods are like hot dogs, deli meats, processed cheese again, fast food nuggets, and breakfast sandwiches.
So basically the equivalence of what you're eating over here on the plant-based side.
Yeah.
So like plant-based cheeses are highly processed and so are dairy cheeses.
Right.
So vegan meat alternatives are highly processed, but also so are deli meats and fast food chicken nuggets.
Exactly.
So same.
Right.
Okay.
And then so if we go look at vegan minimally processed stuff, that's again like apples, oats, lentils, tofu, stuff like that. And then animal products that are minimally processed would be like chicken breast, fish, plain Greek yogurt, something like that. So when somebody says vegan food is processed, they're actually confusing two entirely separate things because it could be like a food that's suitable for vegans and it can be either processed, not processed, whatever, just like all the animal-based products can.
I also have a feeling that most people that are saying this wouldn't consider dairy cheese to be highly processed.
Yeah, well.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because what I've always found interesting is the people that are saying this don't even know how their own food is made.
Yeah.
But then they're like picking apart vegan food.
Yeah, I think it's similar to how a lot of people ask vegans how they get their protein when they don't even know how much protein they get.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a definite issue there. So, I guess the question is, are vegans eating ultra-processed food? And the answer is, yeah, the same way everybody's eating ultra-processed food because our food system is full of it. So whether you're vegan or not. Vegans aren't a special case in either direction here. And in fact, the average person on the standard American diet gets a little more than half, at 57.9% of their daily calories from ultra-processed foods.
Wow.
Yeah. So vegans are not the only ones with the processed food problem.
Yeah.
So some of the things that do kind of ring true out of this stigma or this criticism is that vegan junk food does exist. Lots of vegan junk food exists, and we're not going to pretend otherwise.
I will say more omnivore junk food exists than vegan junk food.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot of junk food you can't have if you're trying to stick to a vegan diet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there were so many of my favorite junk foods that I had to give up when I went vegan.
Yeah. And also there's seems to be a tendency to make a natural connection between veganism and health food or health in general.
I think that's because of the plant-based people and then the vegan people. They get conflated a lot.
Yeah. So being vegan is not automatically related to being healthy any more than not being a vegan is. And there are a lot of, maybe even the majority of vegans go vegan and don't really have any consideration for, is this healthier or is this not healthy? That's not why they went vegan.
They're probably eating the same way they did in terms of a mix of junk food and non-processed foods as they did when they weren't a vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think, okay, one of my main issues in general is that there's like this separation between plant-based and vegans, and like vegans will tell you we're not whole food plant-based people, and whole food plant-based people will hopefully say they don't call themselves vegan, but sometimes they do. And I mean, I'm not saying that vegans can also be whole food plant-based. I'm specifically talking about vegans who are vegan for the animal versus plant-based people who are plant-based for their own health and not animal rights.
Right. They might not even be vegan. They just eat a whole food plant-based diet.
Right. Not to say that vegans can't also eat a whole food plant-based diet. It's just that they're usually a little more particular when they're talking about it to not confuse people.
Yeah, people get pretty fast and loose with the term plant-based these days. Plant-based diet can also mean like I usually only eat plants, but sometimes I still eat animal products.
I've met people who say they're plant-based that I see eating chicken at work, lunch and learn. So, you know what I mean? Like a very loose term. And I think it becomes incredibly confusing for an omnivore because they don't understand the difference between the two. And even like whole food plant-based people who shouldn't be calling themselves vegans because they don't care about animal rights are over there calling themselves vegans. And then, so I think what confuses a lot of omnivores is they start thinking that a vegan diet, people are choosing a vegan diet because it's healthier. And then I think then they start picking apart shit about a vegan diet that's not healthy.
Exactly.
And none of that would even come up if the plant-based people would stop calling themselves fucking vegans.
Right.
Just call yourself plant-based. It's totally cool. We like you that you don't eat animals.
Obviously, a lot of the stuff we put out is to try to be on the healthier side of the food and, the lifestyle and stuff like that. But yeah, people will post something that's like, here's my vegan food online. And people will be like, oh, that's processed junk. And they're like, okay, I don't.
And
what does that have to do with anything? It's delicious.
but then they're also seeing posts from plant-based people who are like, look how healthy I got on a vegan diet. And it's like, and then you'll ask them like, are you a vegan for the animals? And they'll say, no, I'm a vegan for my own health. And it's like, well, that's where the confusion lies because veganism isn't a human health movement. It's an animal liberation movement. Yeah. So like getting those terms right in our own communities is really helpful to not cause confusion in other communities.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like a lot of these conversations could go away if people started labeling themselves appropriately. And just explaining things better to omnivores.
Yeah. So some of the categories of vegan processed food are like the mock meats, like Beyond Impossible, Tofurkey. We've talked about those. The vegan cheeses, like Daiya, Via Life, the ones we mentioned before. Vegan ice cream and desserts. Those are processed, obviously. Heavily processed.
So are omnivore ones.
They also often have more sugar than the dairy versions to make up for the lack of fat.
That makes sense.
Protein powders, you talked about, extremely processed typically, but single ingredient protein powders do exist, like the one from Naked. So even though it's processed, it doesn't have a lot of filler ingredients or extra things in there. And then all the stuff in the snack aisle that's like vegan-y, like Oreos, some chips, vegan marshmallows, stuff like that, kind of the typical snacky junk food that everybody would eat.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff isn't pretending to be healthy anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's saying that like the vegan marshmallows are healthy marshmallows.
Yeah, I think that's like a really interesting piece is all of these things that you're listing are not pretending to be health food in the first place.
Yeah.
It's not like they're junk food disguised as health food. They're just vegan junk food.
They're just food. They're just vegan food, and they're ultra-processed food because people want to buy processed, convenient food.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And so a lot of them also do function as like a transition food for somebody trying to become or to go on a vegan diet. Like the mock meats are really useful because they're a bridge to a more plant-based diet. A lot of people who are like cutting back on red meat will switch to the like Beyond or Impossible for a little bit. And then maybe if they make the full transition to like being a vegan diet, maybe they won't even eat those as much anymore.
Yeah. And I think they're definitely helpful for transitioning because if you buy like Beyond ground beef, you're going to cook that the same way you would normal ground beef. You don't have to learn how to cook something new.
Exactly.
Whereas tofu, there's a bit of a learning curve. TVP, a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even if like you like grilling out or whatever, you throw the Beyond burgers on the grill and you're off to the races,
You're not having to learn a new way of cooking.
Yep. I think that's really important. I think people really underestimate like how important that friction point is for somebody trying to like go to something like a vegan diet is like, I don't have to learn a lot of new stuff about it. I don't have to learn a lot of new foods. I just want a swap.
Well, I think especially when I think the transition in general is kind of challenging because you're losing a lot of things that you maybe enjoyed. Everybody has favorite foods that they had before they went vegan.
Yeah.
And I think the vegan market's done a really good job of replacing a lot of those, but there's still going to be a handful of things that you just can't have anymore. Restaurants you just can't eat at anymore.
Yeah.
So that's like a mental struggle, right? And then you're also dealing with the social friction of not being able to go out to places like you used to with your family and friends that do not eat a vegan diet.
Yeah.
So I think having something that makes at least the cooking aspect seamless is really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely helps lubricate the social situation because you can still have people over for a cookout. You can still like go out with your friends somewhere that has like a Beyond Burger or something like that. It just helps the whole thing make be a little smoother.
Or maybe you don't want to cook with recipes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just remember growing up, I don't think my parents ever used recipes. They were just like cooking the things that their parents cooked and that they knew how to cook. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And you probably have some foods that you just normally cook as an omnivore, and then being able to just kind of replicate those dishes with some of these like packaged items makes the transition a lot easier because you don't have to go recipe searching and buy cookbooks and stuff.
Yeah.
You can eventually get there, but it's a good starting point.
So what is like one of the vegan junk foods that you can't seem to get away from?
Okay, well, this is going to be a sad story because some of my vegan junk foods that were my most favorite have recently just been completely discontinued. So like those Lindt truffles, like the chocolate truffles, those were my favorite. Like for like a sweet treat when I wanted a sweet treat, like a special sweet treat, and now they're gone. They're all gone. Also, Hit Peas had this really good flavor that was called Flavor Blast White Cheddar, and it was so good.
Yeah.
It was the best like vegan Cheeto I've ever had, but apparently that's gone too.
Yeah.
So sad.
Yeah.
And then I like those lesser evil popcorns that were vegan, but now they're replacing some of the vegan ones with omnivore options.
Oh, that's a bummer.
So yeah, a lot of my favorite vegan foods are kind of gone.
Yeah.
What are yours?
I like the vegan Abe's guy thing a lot. Like he has
the banana bread
and the little muffins and stuff. So
the
like,
mini muffins.
It seems like if I actually walk into Whole Foods, I'm probably coming out with something Abe's.
Yeah.
So
they make a lot of good stuff, and they have a bunch of like other allergens they look for.
Yeah. Also, Oreo comes out with new flavors a lot, so I like to try the new Oreo flavors.
Yes, I'm glad that PETA has finally blessed Oreos for us again.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, so I think the real comparison is how the quality of the diet is overall and not like which team, quote unquote, each food belongs to. Like if it's a food that vegans would mostly eat or a food that non-vegans would eat. And then a vegan diet that's 80% whole food with the occasional Beyond Burger is probably still fine from like even a health perspective.
Yeah.
And if you don't care about the health perspective, then obviously do whatever the hell you want. But any diet that's more than 60% in ultra-processed foods, you're probably in the same problematic boat regardless of whether you're a vegan or non-vegan. And there are, statistically, a lot of people in that boat that are both vegan and non-vegan.
Right.
So, being vegan doesn't even make you more likely to eat ultra-processed foods. In fact, it could be less likely because, like we mentioned earlier, you can't eat most of the ultra-processed foods anyway because they're not vegan.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So, there might be a lot of things that you would typically eat and you're like, oh, that has milk or that has egg or whatever. And then changing your diet and lifestyle seems hard. So non-vegans will often just perpetuate some of these myths around veganism as an easy excuse to not try it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the Billie Eilish quote in interview, I think has taught me a lot just existing on social media over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Because she didn't even say anything about ethics, right?
Oh, yeah,
she didn't assign morality to eating animals. She just simply said, you can't eat meat and love animals. And like people have lost their minds and like gone excuse happy. Like it's just like constant barrage of excuses.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not a bad person. I can't eat vegan because of XYZ, you know? So like, I think people are always kind of reaching for an excuse that's easy that they can use. And this one, I think, gets perpetuated a lot because they can just simply point at the advertised vegan foods, which are mostly highly processed.
Yeah. So they might say, like, I value my health, so I can't go vegan.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, well, I mean, that's just not true. Like, it's not going to make your health worse, but that's an easy throwaway excuse for you because you've seen it float around the internet so much that vegans are like this super healthy, unprocessed food. So it's easier for you to just say, oh, I can't do that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I can't go vegan. No big deal. So next time somebody hits you with, like, isn't vegan food all processed? The actual answer is, one, there's no such thing as vegan food. And two, yeah, some of what we eat is processed, but the same way some of what you eat is processed. But the real question is like what the overall pattern of eating looks like.
Yeah. So I feel like the way that we can kind of fix this narrative is, like you said, answering the question and maybe giving supporting facts and information. I mean, there are some people that are just trolls, but there are some people that you could maybe make understand a little differently. And then I think another way is kind of like we talked about earlier on, is you could use social media to post pictures of your vegan food and kind of show that, it's not highly processed. Look what I'm eating.
Maybe even list the ingredients. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think my pizza picture is like one of the best pictures I've ever taken. Or maybe it's just that I like pizza.
Yeah.
But I'll have people be like, oh, yeah, that's not healthy. It's got like super processed cheese on it. And I'm like, I made that in my kitchen.
Yeah, you made the entire, like the dough, the cheese, everything is made from scratch with like 10
minimal
ingredients.
Yeah. It's like, I think that you don't understand things. And that's okay. We can explain things, I guess.
Yeah. So I hope that like helps clear up some of the misconceptions and maybe the talking points around like vegan food being ultra processed. Now let's get into our myth of the week this week. The myth of the week is that eating carbs at night will make you fat.
I have heard this a lot.
Yeah, people say it a lot. Like, you shouldn't eat at night.
Eating at night in general will make you fat.
And there's always a time. It's like you shouldn't eat after 6.
After 8.
You shouldn't eat after 8 or whatever. And or they just generally say, like, carbs at night go straight to fat.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. So the reality of it is that the total daily calories are what matter for the weight and not the timing of those calories.
You mean daytime calories aren't actually easier to get rid of than nighttime calories?
Right. And what do you mean by nighttime? Does that mean like before you go to bed, I guess? Because somebody's third shift. Like,
exactly.
Don't eat after 8 p.m.
I think it's like right before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like,
your body doesn't switch into a fat storage mode at sunset. There's not like a thing that happens.
Yeah, especially if you're on shift work, like you said.
Yeah. Your carbs that you eat at night digest and store as glycogen exactly the same way that carbs at any other time do. So there's nothing special about the nighttime carbs. And then, so something you're probably thinking right now, if you think that this is a thing, is like, what about insulin, storing it as fat? That's typically the thing you'll see, is that eating late at night does some magical thing with insulin and it makes it go straight to fat.
Yeah.
So it is true that insulin sensitivity drops over the course of the day. So a meal eaten at night produces a bigger and longer blood sugar spike than if you eat a meal at lunch. That is true. But a bigger spike does not mean more long-term fat storage. That's not really the same thing. So the claim in general is part of something called the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity, which is actually kind of in competition to the energy balance, which is like your calories.
Yeah.
So basically the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity says that insulin is what drives, weight change and fat storage and not calories. So this was kind of an older theory, but it's been actually like directly tested in metabolic wards where they control every calorie you eat across big studies. And it's just like not supported by data at all. So when calories and protein are matched, varying the carb intake or the carb timing does not drive different fat gain.
This is, I think, interesting because the people I say pushing some of this stuff are like those influencer type, wellness grifter types that like they're trying to make money off of you by selling you some solution.
Yeah.
Like, sign up with me and I'll tell you how you can eat even more calories. Because what you don't know is this insulin thing is really how calories matter.
Yeah. If you are like, if you open Threads right now and fitness is remotely in your algorithm, you're going to scroll for 10 seconds and see like 3 posts about calories aren't what counts, insulin controls your weight.
Yeah.
Something. That is based off of this model that has been completely debunked at this point.
But they don't care because they still want to sell you their garbage-ass course.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like the way they studied this is not really up for debate anymore. This is just like a defunct theory.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Now, there are things around insulin resistance that, affect appetite and affect like maybe it won't affect your weight, but it might affect how much of your weight you lose from fat or muscle, some things like that. But it doesn't change the fact that like your total calorie balance controls your actual body weight.
Which makes sense because mass is neither created or destroyed. This is just like some of the first laws of science.
Right. And so some ways that eating carbs at night might even help you, not for weight, but some evidence that carbs at night may improve your sleep quality. So it helps you, sleep a little better throughout the night if you have carbs late. It could also be useful for post-workout recovery if you train in the evening. And then there was actually a 6-month randomized controlled trial that had its subjects eat most of their carbs at dinner compared to a control group that spread their carbs kind of throughout the day. The group that ate their carbs later actually did have more weight loss and better metabolic markers. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. And no, this is not like a contradiction to what we just talked about because these groups did not have their calories matched. So this was like a what they call a free living study where they gave them like a general calorie target, and the only real instruction they gave them was like eat your carbs at night.
I wonder if that's because they were so full on like protein and stuff during the day.
Yeah, apparently eating your carbs at night really helped regulate like hunger and satiety and things like that. So they just tended to eat fewer calories in general.
Yeah.
So for what came out of that study is like it might be easier to control appetite and stick to a lower calorie diet if you kind of put the carbs later at night. But it's not because it wasn't the same calories and then eating at night made them lose less weight. It's like the eating the carbs at night caused them to just naturally eat fewer calories because they weren't as hungry. The myth kind of comes from a couple of things. One is a little bit of a conflation issue. People who eat a lot late at night often overeat in general. So if you're somebody who's like snacking in front of a screen late at night, you're probably overeating in general. So it looks like eating carbs late at night is what causes the weight gain. Oh, you got an ice cream truck.
Kona ice.
So it's the calorie surplus that's causing that extra fat and not the clock. It's not because you ate the calories late. It's just because
you ate the calories.
You ate extra calories when you maybe a lot of other people aren't eating those extra calories because it's right before bed. Cool. So I think we can safely call that myth busted. Feel free to eat your carbs whenever you want. You just have to control your total calories if you're trying to manage your weight. So we have a couple of updates for deficient vegans in general. The first thing is I think we mentioned before, but we're going to be starting the book club on the Deficient Vegans Discord server.
We picked the book Eating Animals as our first book because I think it lays a lot of the context around, just eating animals and all of the bad things that come with eating animals.
Yeah, we got 5 copies we're going to be giving away on an Instagram raffle for the book club. We're going to do a post about the giveaway on June 1st, so be on the lookout for that on the Deficient Vegans Instagram account. And then you'll have 3 days to enter the raffle. Names will be drawn Thursday morning on June the 4th. The book club itself will start on June 22nd on Discord.
Yeah, we're going to create a channel and we're going to have discussions. We're probably going to break the book into either 4 or 6 parts, and we'll let you guys know which chapters we're reading or to like what page we're reading for each section.
Yeah.
And then we'll just have discussion questions and open discussion on those parts of the book.
Yeah. And that first book will probably go through the end of July, I think.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably talk about it on a podcast episode in August.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this one because this is actually the book that made me go vegan.
Yeah.
And it's the book that made Natalie Portman go vegan, and she gives it out to family and friends.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So it seems like an overall good book.
Yeah. So make sure you follow us on Instagram on the Deficient Vegans account. We'll be down in the show notes. That's where the raffle will be, and you can also get updates there. Also, for Deficient Vegans, there is a slightly new website. We get a little fancier. We're going to start adding a couple of blog posts to the Deficient Vegans site, or more around like getting into veganism, general veganism community stuff. On our own websites, we kind of do like fitness and nutrition. You do like food and recipes.
Yeah.
So we're making the Deficient Vegans more of like general vegan information and newcomers to veganism, resources for that kind of thing.
Yeah, since the podcast is starting to head more towards the vegan front than necessarily the fitness and nutrition, which is a lot of the earlier podcasts handled.
Yeah. So also, if you need another reason to join the Discord server, we have created a pet channel now so people can show off and admire everybody's little fur babies.
They're really cute.
All right. So we appreciate you listening. If you could leave a review on Apple Podcast and Spotify, or that helps us out a lot. And then if you're on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave us a comment, and we'd love to hear from you. And then, don't forget to join the Deficient Vegans Discord server. We're up to 70 people now, and it's been popping off lately.
Yeah, people talk in there a whole lot more now.
Yeah. You can also check out our websites and social media down in the show notes if you want to get in touch or ask us some questions. So I think that's it. Do you want to say bye?
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.